You're sitting in a crowded stadium in London, 90,000 fans are chanting, "A player scores," and the entire crowd erupts. It's the greatest football match of the year. A few hours later, you're in Dallas, Texas, 80,000 fans are packed into another stadium, "A player scores," and the crowd goes wild, but nobody calls it football. They call it soccer. For decades, this single word has confused millions of people around the world. Every World Cup, every Champions League final, every international tournament, the same question appears online. Why do Americans call it soccer when everyone else calls it football? Most people think the answer is simple. America changed the name, but that's not what happened. In fact, the word soccer was invented by the British themselves. And once you understand the story, you'll realize America may have been blamed for something it didn't actually create. To understand how this happened, we need to go back more than 150 years. In the 1800s, Britain was full of different football games. Schools, towns, and regions all had their own versions. Some allowed players to carry the ball, others only allowed kicking. The rules varied wildly depending on where you played. This created a problem. When teams from different places met, nobody could agree on the rules. So in 1863, a group of clubs gathered in London and created a standardized set of rules. This became the Football Association. The game they organized was officially called Association Football, but there was another popular version, Rugby Football. Now people had two footballs, Association Football and Rugby Football. Students at elite British universities began shortening words and adding nicknames. Rugby Football became Rugger, Association Football became ASO, then soccer, and eventually soccer. Yes, the word soccer was born in England, not America, not Canada, not Australia. England. For decades, both terms existed side by side in Britain. Newspapers used football and soccer interchangeably. Nobody thought it was strange. So why did America keep the word while Britain abandoned it? The answer has everything to do with another sport, American football. During the late 1800s, American universities were developing their own version of football. It borrowed ideas from rugby, but evolved into something entirely different. By the early 1900s, American football had exploded in popularity. College stadiums were filling with fans. Professional leagues were forming. The sport became deeply connected to American culture. Soon, when Americans said football, everyone assumed they meant American football. A distinction was needed, so Americans continued using the already existing British nickname, soccer. It wasn't an act of rebellion. It wasn't America trying to be different. It was simply a practical way to separate two sports that shared the word football. Meanwhile, something very different was happening in Britain. Association football was becoming overwhelmingly dominant. There was less need for the nickname. Gradually, people stopped saying soccer and returned to simply calling the sport football. By the second half of the 20th century, football became the preferred term across most of the United Kingdom. The nickname survived in America, and that's where the confusion began, as football became the world's most popular sport. Billions of fans grew up hearing only one name, football, when they heard Americans say soccer. It sounded like America had invented a completely different term, but historically, America was simply preserving a word that Britain had created. The story gets even more interesting when you look around the world. The United States isn't alone. Australia has long used the word soccer because Australian rules football is hugely popular. Canada often uses soccer because Canadian football exists. Parts of Ireland have traditionally used soccer to distinguish it from Gaelic football. Even today, the word survives in several English-speaking countries. The difference is that America is the biggest and most visible example. That's why it receives most of the attention. What's fascinating is how a simple nickname became a cultural debate. One word now represents identity, tradition, and national pride for many people around the world. Football isn't just a sport, it's part of their culture. So hearing another term can feel almost wrong, but history tells a more complicated story. The truth is that football and soccer were once both perfectly acceptable names for the same game. One name became dominant in most of the world. The other remained common in places where different football codes became more popular. Neither appeared overnight. Neither was invented to start an argument, and neither side is using the wrong word according to history today. Football is played in nearly every corner of the planet, from the streets of Rio de Janeiro to the neighborhoods of London, from villages in Africa to cities across Asia. Billions of people share the same passion. And as the sport continues to grow in the United States, especially with the 2026 World Cup approaching, the debate over soccer versus football will probably continue. But now you know something most people don't. The next time someone says Americans ruin the name of football, you can tell them a surprising fact. The British invented the word soccer first. America just never stopped using it, and sometimes the most famous cultural differences aren't created by one country at all. They're simply historical accidents that nobody ever expected to last. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more hidden pieces of American history and culture. And tell me in the comments, what do you call the world's most popular sport, football or soccer? I'd love to hear where you're watching from.